Here comes the nasty gram.
Send a priest to save my soul, forget it.
Welcome back to the Nastygram D&D podcast. This is A Tangled Web, Chapter 19, Divinations.
Too hard is the poison to the heart of a cynic.
Salivar is standing on a wooden platform, dressed in brightly colored clothes, dancing to a tune. The scene looks comical until we look closer to see that there are hooks that pierce his flesh, attached to his limbs, that pull his body one way and then another. He dances like a puppet because that's what he is. Salivar grabs hold of the strings and yanks them, bites at them, severs them. He lays exhausted on the stage, bleeding. He is free. As this thought drifts through his mind involuntarily, his leg twitches, then his torso, his arms, and he looks in horror as webs are now attached to his body. His eyes snap open and he sits up quickly, soaked in sweat from the nightmare. He looks down at his arm as it throbs in pain, the wound where the spider of Loth blessed him. He thinks to himself, "What have I done?" He looks across this small cave, where he sees his brother Jidden flipping a dagger in his hand, one used to kill a priestess of Loth and the demons they summon. He sees Zavir forcing down soup through his crippled jaw, and Salai wiping away the summoning circle of the Yugoloth. And then Salivar knows. He is doing what he must. They are all doing what they must.
Matron Shara Vandry sits on a glowing white drift disk as it floats through the streets of Menzoberranzan, surrounded by soldiers, clerics, and wizards of her house. We see a bird's eye view of the long column of soldiers making their way home. Ahead of the procession, a tower casts a dark shadow as it blocks the soft glow of Narbandal. The disk enters the shadow, and a ragged, robed figure on the roof of the tower makes a few arcane gestures. As the disk exits the shadow of the tower, its rider is gone. Several dirty, robed figures perch on rooftops and window ledges, looking down into the narrow, dark alleyway below them. Matron Vandry appears suddenly and falls to the ground. As she looks up, she sees a handsome, dark elf man in front of her.
Hello. Good to see you again, matron.
Welcome back to the Nastygram Dungeons and Dragons podcast. I will be your spy master, shadow master, dungeon master, Jake.
This is Josh playing Zavir of Ross, the Mouthless Mage.
Hey everyone, Dan here playing Salivar, formerly Duskgrin, Warlock. New ownership. New management.
What's good, fam? Matt back again playing Jidden Duskgrin, the rogue, magician, assassin.
Hey, this is Devin, and I'll be playing Salai, Moon Maiden, rightful heir of House Vandry.
Already starting that?
Just want to put it out there.
Let's start with Salai. She's in the throne room of House Vandry with her little sister. What are you doing with your sister, Asina?
We are looking out at the light of Narbandal as it starts to dwindle and fade.
You know what's happening right now. She's, did I describe her as being like 14?
Yeah, young.
13, 14
teen.
years old, like very young. But she has this sort of countenance, this seriousness and stoicness that is very unsettling and very common for young women of dark elf society, noble women. as she just sits there and looks out over the city, quietly waiting for word. She says, "Will I be the youngest, matron mother?"
No. The youngest in Menzoberranzan now, yes, but not in the history of our people.
Our people? She smiles. Good to hear you say that, sister. Meanwhile, Jidden, you have your face on, your alias,
Yep.
as you stand in this alleyway over matron mother Sharavandri, who has suddenly appeared and fallen to the ground. She's sort of on her hands, looking up at you, up above you. All of these cultists of Shar, who you told that this would be a great boon if they helped Shar by doing this. They await the judgment that you're about to pass on this devotee of Loth. And she just looks at you, sort of confused. She doesn't recognize you. She doesn't know who you are.
Let me give you a hand. And a spectral hand forms behind her and kind of begins to help her to her feet.
Who are you? Where am I? What happened to my soldiers? She's looking around the alleyway, trying to get her bearings.
They'll be fine. They're under new leadership, you could say.
What?
Well, you know how Loth can be. Fickle, temperamental.
I have been nothing but a faithful servant to Loth. I have done her will in every way I can.
You have. And you have taught your daughters well. And a rapier flashes out from Jidden's side.
Rolled a hit.
Snap.
22.
That's a hit.
With
Classic Dark Elf.
Yeah. With sneak attack.
Not bad.
What is Salai and her sister doing right now? Salai and Asina.
Drown light bright. Drown light bright.
Salai is describing the surface world to Asina.
She's sitting on her mother's throne, listening, looking out over the city. It sounds absolutely awful. How much damage, Matt?
35 piercing damage.
35. This rapier, she moves just at the last moment, and it goes through her arm, and she kind of cries out and stumbles backwards. She's not wearing any armor. She's just wearing priestess robes. She had just come from some sort of ritual. You knew this because Asina had told you that she would be where she was.
Mm-hmm.
She stumbles backwards. She reaches down for her whip. Roll initiative.
23.
I got an 11. What do you do?
Jidden's hands begin to twitch, and I will cast Mind Sliver. That is DC 15 intelligence save from her. So as he's standing there, the illusion over his face cracks just for a second, and you can see the veins of the stone in his mask begin to glint and move around as he casts this spell.
9. Guessing that fails.
Yes. And
Okay.
she'll her next
Oh.
save, attack, or I think it's just save, actually.
Yeah, it is. Is that it?
No, he'll do that as he's saying, Loth was always a fan of when family betrays family, wasn't she?
What? You can see the realization, you knowing where she was, you just being so prepared for her right now, that realization crosses her face of this all being some sort of setup. And she's going to try to cast a spell on you.
Okay.
I like the juxtaposition between Salai having a little heart-to-heart with her little sister as Jidden murders their mother.
Yeah, Salai says, "The land is rich. Waters from the sky nourish the plants and the trees and the people."
If you love it so much, why did you leave? Why did you come back here? Matt, give me a Constitution saving throw.
13.
Think about that inspiration. Think about your destination.
Does inspiration give you advantage, or is it just the reroll?
No,
D6.
D6
And
plus
it explodes.
Oh,
You might
Yeah.
make it over that hill.
yeah, that's close enough.
Shillelagh.
3, 16 total.
16 will do it.
Oh,
That's what you needed. You needed a 16. She reaches out and she says some arcane words and she touches you. Her finger touches your face and you feel this sort of necrotic energy and you kind of jump back and your mask absorbs it and it doesn't affect you.
Sick.
Back to you.
Oh, well, nice try, but would you like to see what Loth took from me? And Jidden will cast Phantasmal Force.
Okay.
That is a intelligence save of 15.
Minus that D4 because she didn't make another
Correct.
attack roll ability check or whatever.
I got a 16 total, and then I rolled a -4, so it works.
Ooh.
So the setup was worth it.
Yeah.
What does that do? What does she see?
So with Phantasmal Force, it's a whole lot of reading for the
Yeah, it's a lot
spell.
of stuff.
So I'll skip to the gist of it. But basically, Jidden is able to invade her mind and create an image that only she can see. And what she sees is what only Salivar has ever seen. And that is Jidden's true form, but as his brother. No hair lip, but the dark-haired Duskren male that she betrayed all those years ago.
Okay.
It's like she just sees you. that's the fear. That's how you know you're a great assassin, is when you project someone's greatest fear. It's just you.
So she's got that whip out now. She's got that hand, that finger pointed at you, but there's just this look of confusion on her face as you change your form, and she's just kind of doesn't understand what's going on. Devin, you want to answer that question?
Mother told me something a long time ago before I left. She told me that a priestess of Vandry cannot be lost to the surface, for the call of the Underdark will always guide us home. I needed time to learn that for myself.
She thinks about what you just said for a minute. You can tell that she's really rolling it over in her head.
My back is still to her. I'm still looking out over Narbondel.
You don't see this, but she reaches under her robe for a dagger that she keeps there. And she's considering plunging it into your back.
She knows.
Meanwhile, Matron Vandry uncoils that whip. And she says, "Who are you? I don't know you. What are you?"
We are what Loth created when she told our mother that one of us could only survive. She made this. Now we will unmake you. And the phantasmal force will pull out a ceremonial drow dagger and step towards her to make an attack.
Very cool. So she can actually take damage from this.
Yes.
Yes.
Very
cool.
It's dealt as a 1d6 of psychic damage. And it takes, she perceives it as whatever form whatever I make it. So that's only 2 psychic damage. But as that happens, Jidin, the real Jidin, steps around and...
Did you just make a guy that could flank with you?
No.
He's already got that.
That's what the mage hand was for.
Yeah.
And it's not flanking anymore, but it gives me sneak attack. But Jidin steps around, and as the phantasmal force attacks, so does Jidin. 22 to hit again.
Hit.
And counting music.
While you're doing that, let's actually check in on Zavir. Zavir is in the home base.
Guess I'm not up on the balcony. You got it. That's
Oh,
funny.
no. You wanted to be up on the balcony. I'm sorry.
I'm kind of thinking about it. Even if he does nothing, I think...
You're up on the balcony. You're watching this fight, but you're thinking... You're actually... You have that ring in your hand, that ring that you got, and you're rolling it over in your hand. You haven't put it on yet, right?
I
don't think you put it on yet. You know that it's cursed.
Yes.
You also know that you need it. And you're rolling it over in your hand. And you're thinking about that weird burned dwarf that you met. And you're thinking about what he said about the keys. You're thinking about the books that you read that you got from the cult of Shar that were stolen from that weird tally keeper. And about how he said in his writing in those books that the keys are cursed, that they are bound to you until death. You feel them jingle at your waist. How much damage do you do, Matt?
34 piercing.
That brings us up to 80 total. You stab her in the stomach, and she moves back to pull that rapier out of her stomach. And as she moves back, she cracks that whip and she tries to hit you with it. What's your armor class?
18.
I got an 18.
Word.
I know you can reduce damage. It is going to be a lot because she's smiting you.
Ooh.
She's a cleric.
Jake, is that a spell?
Yes. You want to counterspell?
Very cute.
Yes.
I love it. All right.
Azun is not there.
Okay.
Zavir's up there alone.
Mm-hmm.
Counterspell only takes a somatic component.
Cool.
But he has to use the ring to double the range. He's just watching this and seeing her other hand make the incantation.
Okay.
Zavir just shakes his hand.
It's 4th level. I don't know if you need to roll.
I was going to
Third
cast
is
it
automatic.
at 5th. to
Okay,
be-
cool. So this whip hits you for 6 damage, and you can see the look of terror on her face, and you realize that she's not sure why it didn't work. She doesn't realize she was counterspelled. In fact, the cult of Shar has put you in a globe of darkness, and she looks around, and you can just tell by the look on her face that she thinks Loth has abandoned her.
Sweet.
As this whip does very little. The teeth of that snake whip don't bite into your flesh the way that they do when these priestesses, smite people with this. It's back to you.
5 psychic from the phantasmal force as she strikes out with the snake whip. The phantasmal force just kind of steps directly in front of her, or almost appears as her arm is extended, and he drives the dagger into her stomach. And then Jidin stabs as well. It's another natural 11, 22 to hit.
Okay.
Unnatural 11, did you say?
Yeah.
Love those nat 11s.
The third one.
I'm just curious for the listener's sake. How much? What's your bonus? What is your backstab damage? Plus 5d6?
7.
76.
Yeah.
That's a lot of d6.
You only rolled 6.
Big D.
He got a 1 on the D8
On the
for his
extra,
rapier.
yeah. Oh, okay.
On his
All
rapier.
right.
10, 21.
Trick is to use a weapon that does a d6, so you just roll
Yep.
more d6.
Yeah. That's only 30 piercing.
It's only 30.
She's not looking great. In fact, you think you just pierced her lung. She's kind of gasping. She's gurgling blood. She's still standing, but she is not looking good. And she staggers back, barely on her feet. And then she tries to cast another spell.
I'm going to counterspell at 6th level.
That's good.
Damn.
Because she cast a 6th level spell as well.
Ooh. I'm sure it's friendly.
Harm.
Do you have to?
If I cast at that level, it's automatic.
Okay,
Yep.
so the spell, she cast heal on herself.
Ooh. Good
And
spell. Now,
you can tell she's having trouble talking, but Matt, why don't you roll to hit? And as you lunge that rapier towards her again,
Does a natural 19 sound better than
Natural
a natural 11?
19's
So it's
pretty
a
good.
30 to hit?
30 hits. As you plunge that rapier into her chest, her last words are, "Why have you forsaken me?"
As those words leave her mouth, just Jidin's, the illusion on Jidin's face drops, and the stone mask is now only visible to her. And he reaches up and pulls it off of his face. And he says, "Well, it's a bitch, isn't she?"
As soon as Zavir sees her fall, he dimension doors to get out of there. He doesn't want to
Nice.
know. He doesn't want Jin to know. He was there.
Nice. Asina says, "It's done. She's dead." She smiles.
I turn around to face her.
"Will you fight me now for the title of matron?
Salai smiles.
By birthright, it would be yours."
I surrendered that birthright when I left Menzoberranzan. But I raise my hand and clench it into a fist, make a wisdom saving throw.
wait, what? Was your intro serious?
I got an 18.
I think that is my DC. Exactly.
She doesn't have a great wisdom because she's only a child, but I rolled a 16. What are you trying to do? Just
I was going
Gotta
to
know.
try and take the knife from her hand.
her hand is under the robe.
Okay.
Yeah, she's not about to strike you.
I'll walk up to her and I say, "Are you aware that those who sit on the council of Menzoberranzan must pledge their undying loyalty to the will of Lolth?
Of course.
The way you spoke in the mushroom fens leads me to believe that you have a will of your own, not one bound by ancient tradition or a demon's lies."
Oh, sister, you know as well as any that words are cheap in Menzoberranzan. Oaths and pledges. How often are they broken? You should know by now to trust no one.
And yet I trust you. And I look down at that hand behind her robe. Do you trust me, Asina, matron, Vandry?
No,
You are wise.
but I know what you want. Go, take it.
Salai steps back and she bows her head.
Give this to your friend. A token of my thanks for the job well done. She gives you a ring.
Salai takes it in her hand. Matron. She leaves.
Zavir, You dimension door out of there. You get back to
Bamf.
the cavern. You don't dimension door all the way to the cavern, but you get there eventually.
Bamf.
Bam, bam, bam.
Bamf. Bamf.
Couple bamps.
I'm out of spells.
Couple bamps later. You better not get any more fights today. You get back to your sort of area that you had set up where you were doing all your research. You've got all your books. You see these books laid out on the table. You see a list of locations made by the tallyman. It's a bunch of very important locations all around Faerun. Mithranor, Waterdeep, Candlekeep, Mithril Hall, Thay, places like that. You remember reading about these keys. There is one set made for each realm. And each set of keys is a door to the most important places in that realm. Menzoberranzan is on that list as well. You know now exactly why they want those keys.
They want to open up the borders.
Open up the borders.
Open borders. Tens of million people. They're going to go into
Lots of
Candlekeep.
people, one might say, from the south.
Yeah. They're going to go into Candlekeep and
boy.
take all the
Hordes?
jobs.
Oh boy.
Hordes.
They're going to buy all the houses.
A whole caravan from
Murderers?
the south.
Oh no.
You know, people say they're already here.
Do you know the town of Daggerford? Half the population.
They're eating the familiars.
Yep.
All right.
Mark that one. All right.
Actually.
Send that one to Liv. It'll make her day. You look over your books, all your studying that you've been doing, and then you kind of glance over to that null magic. I think you guys, did you set up a little like tent
Yeah.
over it or something?
Yep.
Yeah.
No, just the weirdos.
Yeah.
There's like a kind of like this big thing of slate in there, a blackboard. It's our little war room.
Salvar's in the room as well.
Yeah.
When you get there, he's sort of pacing back and forth. You, Salvar, you don't have your armor on. You're shirtless. You're rippling 8 strength pectorals.
10, I'll have
10.
you know.
Woo.
Dad bods ripping.
So sexy. And you just keep looking down at, was it your arm?
Yeah, I believe it was my arm.
At these kind of black veins that are spreading across the spider bite on your arm.
4th character in a row.
Do we know about the deal you made?
I don't
Yeah.
think you know. I think this, not a lot of time has passed. Maybe a day. I don't know if
Sure.
you told them.
I mean, I know that Salai, when we were together,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I announced that the deal was done. I think that's how we ended the last episode.
Yeah, you spoke with the Spider Queen.
Yeah.
I haven't talked about it.
So we're gonna say you guys can chat a little bit, and then Devin and Matt, you guys can kind of jump in, assuming you're heading back there. You can jump in whenever you feel that your character should arrive.
Okay.
Ready, set, go.
I think Xavier walks in and he walks through and you see his eyes glance to those black marks, and the eyes kind of flick to your eyes, but he keeps walking. He moves to that little tent. He's been doing this pretty often. He goes in there. You see him take this ring off his finger, set it on the rock in front of him. And he just sits there cross-legged silently for a while. And he probably doesn't move until you talk to him or the others come back.
What's Jim in the Bone Zone doing?
Skeleton Jim and the Bones Trinity
Okay.
are guarding the doors as they
Got it.
always do, keeping us safe.
Uh-huh.
Ice.
God.
Mark.
I hear they endorsed Xavier for party leader.
When did Jidden and Salai return?
Not yet. Salivar walks kind of across the room, takes up a cantina and pulls. It's impossible, right? A canteen and drinks some water. Looking down again at the wound in his forearm, starts pacing again. He knows the things that were in play, right?
What things? What?
Specifically that
You know that
Jitten was out.
the Vandry deal.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, Matt, you haven't hidden that from them, right? No. Yeah, you know.
Jake, do you want to do any of the, I'd send you a message about some info gathering stuff. Do you want to do any of that on screen?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
You hear across the room.
Should we do one right now?
Sure. Like, well, yeah. Let Dan say what he was going to say, but yeah, you want to do it while you're in there, I assume, right?
I would have to leave to do it.
Okay.
But
Or
I was
you
I
could
was
have done
gonna
it on
kind
your
of
way
cut.
back
I was
through.
gonna kind of cut around,
Okay.
like do a little meetup right now, and then do a bunch of cuts,
Okay.
basically.
Salivar says across the room, "Was my brother successful?"
Xavier's his eyes open, they were closed as he was kind of sitting there meditatively. He looks at you and he signs to you in Drow hand code. I'm not there. But his eyes kind of betray that. He's not lying to you.
Right.
He's telling you his message. And then he kind of nods.
Salivar kind of sighs and goes back to pacing. He's looking at some of the things that we've kind of put on this chalkboard, this information of how we plan to proceed. And he worries.
I imagine that on there are sort of questions that you need answered.
Yeah.
And Xavier looks at that, and that's when you decide, like, now let's do this, right?
Yeah. He stands, he walks to the chalkboard, and he writes, I need you to ask the questions about Arbister's home.
Understood.
He leaves. You look back, that ring is still sitting on the stone in the little null magic tent. Good album name. And he walks out to that main area where he does a lot of his rituals, and you see him sit down and he unwraps these scrolls. You can see a lot of new writings. This is something he's been working on a lot recently. And he starts to perform a ritual. I'm going to roll a die to determine how this goes. Okay. So I passed the intelligence saving throw. So I'm not...
No big deal. Not insane.
I'm not insane.
Yeah.
Wow. That's casual.
So casual.
You see him start to go through a ritual.
What level is the spell?
There's a 5th level spell, Contact Other Plane. Jake, Xavier is reaching out to a entity that his research has determined knows about Arbister. A greater demon, a demigod, a denizen of hell.
Is this generally with this spell? Is it like a more powerful creature?
Yes.
You said a demigod.
You
so
mentally
something-
contact a demigod, the spirit of a long dead sage, or some other mysterious entity from another plane. Contacting this extraplanar intelligence can strain or even break your mind. We're good with that. On a successful save, we can ask the enemy up to 5 questions. We have 1 minute to ask them. The DM answers each question with 1 word. Or if a 1-word answer would be misleading, the DM might instead offer a short phrase as an answer.
Okay. I think that I imagine the way this works is you just kind of, both of you in the general area, you feel this thing's presence. You don't see it, but you feel its heavy breathing. You don't know what it is, but there's something that you've kind of made a connection to. And Xavier, one thing that you know with this spell, with your research, you've the devils and demons, but devils more so, they're very conniving. They're like dark elves. They're always kind of looking to move up their own status. And you think the creature that you've tried to reach out to is a different pit fiend who maybe feels slighted that it did not receive the position that Arbiter received.
I like it. And I would say off screen, Xavier has told you this was going to happen and he's going to need your help. So you have you know what's going on.
Yep.
And you know the objective, which is he is trying to contact this entity that knows about Arbiter and his home. And we have a limited opportunity to ask 5 questions.
Okay.
It doesn't speak, but you know it's present. You can feel that breathing.
You see Xavier, his eyes are open, and that blue eye is like almost strobing. It's like flickering as you feel this like presence in the room, and you see his whole body kind of shivering, like he's just trying to hold it together.
Salivar stands very still as he kind of gathers himself to ask these questions. He kind of stares blankly ahead of him. There's probably maybe we can't see him, but there's like this distortion in the air that signifies the presence, that palpable kind of heaviness.
You can almost feel the breathing on the back of your neck.
The heat.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
To the denizen, which level of the 9 hells is Arbiter's home?
You hear this deep voice say,
Where in Avernus is his home located?
it's kind of a shitty answer because it's
Is it Brass City or something?
it says, do you have knowledge religion?
I do not.
Okay. Do you?
Yeah.
You know, Xavier, just having knowledge religion in general, that the Bronze Keep is immense. Like otherworldly, like unrealistically large. So saying that is really not helpful.
LA.
Exactly.
Is there a way in that we can remain undetected? Does Arbiter have a weakness we can exploit? You got one more question, right? Any ideas?
Metagame wise,
Is there a way to draw Arbiter out?
or
A way
where
to
is
provoke him?
where is he keeping your wife's soul? How is your wife's soul kept? Or a more specific location, because as he said, Bronze City is not
Bronze Keep, yeah.
Bronze Keep. Xavier told you before this, like, I may be able to learn more from what we have.
Mhm.
I have other things I'm going to try, but we need to get as much as we can from him.
In the last game, Dan, you had been seeing this vision when Loth granted you your power of a place in the hells.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that?
It was the gates outside of the Brass City, wasn't
Correct.
it? Yep.
Yeah. It was a newly constructed thing outside the Brass City. Did I tell you what it was?
The gates.
I did. Okay.
Yep,
Okay.
12 enormous gateways.
12 enormous gateways.
So I could ask about that or the location of my wife's soul.
Well, I'm presumably those gates are somewhere in the
City.
the bronze citadel.
Okay.
Citadel Bronze, I think is what it's called.
Salivar pauses on that 5th question. He considers it carefully, and his eyes kind of dart around now, the space, looking for someone to address that he knows he won't see. And he says,
You see Xavier, like the shivering is now like shaking. Like he's sitting there. You see him like almost like he's going to fall over. He's sitting cross-legged and just like almost looks like he's having a seizure. And that the pulse is so fast, it's almost continuous. if you had epilepsy,
Yep.
you might have a
Yep.
episode.
They both start having a seizure.
Where does Arbiter keep his prized souls?
At his side.
Salivar takes a deep breath and then like looks down at kind of immediately goes to the side of Xavier.
I think Xavier, like, he rocks back, like almost like he got hit by a wave, kind of cracks his head on the stone a little bit. That eye just goes, the light goes out completely. It's just that pale, soft blue. And he kind of like rises a little bit like he's coming to. He reaches to his side for parchment and ink. He writes something. He passes it to you. It says, "Why does your telepathic voice sound different than your character voice?"
Yeah, well, I've got a little bit of that cold today, so got a head cold.
No.
It's those black veins making him sick.
He does write it to you, and he says, "Did you get the answers we sought?"
We have a starting point, but I think the net is still wide.
He kind of stands up shakily with your help, and he nods, and he says, he signs talk with others on return.
Salivar nods, and he holds your shoulder for a moment, and this sort of soft kind of gray cloud extends from his hand, and you feel better. I use healing touch.
Ooh, I like that. You see Xavier kind of get a little more steady on his feet, and he kind of nods to you, his eyes are a little bit more clear, nods in thanks. And he walks over, and on the edge of this little area, this ritual area, which is kind of like grown in like the amount of chalk outlines and rituals, crystals, accoutrement, fucking parchments, books piled up all over the place. He has this one little spot off to the side, which is, there's like a stone shelf that's actually carved into the wall. And there's just this red fabric. And you've seen him do this a few times. And he walks over and he kind of lowers himself to his knees, and he puts his hands, and you see him grab that red fabric and kind of cross it over his hands. And he just bows his head and he kind of stays there.
It looks like he's in prayer.
Yeah.
Jidden, where are you?
I was actually just going to say, from a dark corner of that room, you hear Jidden's voice ring out. Oh, it looks like you had more fun than I did.
Xavier kind of stops as he's starting this ritual and turns to you. And he kind of nods his head towards Salivar.
Salivar is looking you up and down, and he says, "You look unharmed, brother."
Yes. Oh.
The comment seemed casual, but his eyes were searching, making sure you were okay.
I had perhaps you could say, guardian angel over my shoulder. And his eyes will flick over towards Xavier.
Xavier is now head bowed, the red fabric over his hands.
Does this mean that House Vandry is in our favor?
Yes.
Excellent.
I'm sure the Moon Maiden will be taking quite a good advantage of the situation.
Where's that Moon Maiden?
As you speak of her, there's a wind that carries through the open door, and Salai steps through. She strides into the room. She has a bag over her shoulder, hanging on her side.
Your sister, your matron, excuse me, as well.
She has sent for us when we are ready. In the meantime, I was given access to the Vandry vaults. She takes the bag off and puts it down on the ground.
Jake, at this point, Xavier is finishing up his prayers. He's been praying to Ilmater,
Ooh.
the god of suffering that he feels he has been connected with a few times, including with that dwarf.
As you're doing this, that fox is close by.
And he's praying for Jidden, who he thinks, and he would never say this to Jidden because he thinks it would be patronizing. He couldn't come across right, but he sees in Jidden a level of suffering that he shares more than anyone else he's met.
Cool. Very cool.
So he uncrosses the ribbon and he stands and walks back. The thing we talked about, you want to do that after some more info gathering?
I think so.
Okay.
That way we
Yeah,
have everything
yep.
going into
Okay.
it.
Xavier, you think Salai like bows to you, but you look down and it's actually the fox that is like looking at her.
Salivar takes a seat on kind of one of the rocks strewn about this small cavern. And he says, with Xavier's help, I was able to narrow our focus in finding Arbastor. He is in Aventus, in the brass keep, in the bronze keep.
Citadel of Bronze.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you said
Did
Bronze
I? Yeah, it is called the Citadel of Bronze.
say
it's in a-
Citadel of Bronze. I'll cut it back in.
Right, and cuts.
And it's Avernus, not Aventus.
Avernus.
Avernus.
My
Citadel
voice
of
is my
Bronze.
passport.
Citadel of Bronze. It's going to sound perfect, guys.
He is in Avernus, in the Citadel of Bronze.
You see Xavier kind of like shaking his head. He makes the Andrel hand code symbol for huge.
The specifics were slim. But he
Salai,
said-
I'm sorry. As he's talking, your eye keeps going back to that bite on his arm. You see those black veins, and you're concerned. You haven't had a chance. It's been less than 24 hours. You haven't had a chance to really look at it closely, to study it, but you are very worried about it, and you definitely, as a healer and a goodly creature, you probably want to like help him out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is does he look? How does he look?
There's maybe a slight sheen of sweat on him, but it's hard to say whether that's because he was exercising before,
Sure. He's got a little swell on.
or if he's actually feeling sickly.
All right. Salai is concerned, but she's not.
Salivar continues and he says, there is a weakness we may be able to exploit. The slaves of the Citadel, they pass through. They come and go. It is possible we can take this path. And the entity that I spoke to, he says that rage is Arbastor's weakness.
Those of you who have knowledge religion, one thing that you know is that the most lesser of devils, the most minor thralls are sorry, looking through my notes here, trying to find the name of them.
I think you said lemurs, right?
Lemure.
Lemure. They're called lemure. They're
Bunch of ringtail
they're damned souls, basically. They're kind of what you become if you go to hell. And what happens with all devils is that they slowly work their way up. So like even the most powerful pit fiend was once a lemure, and before that was once a living creature.
So it's like a pull yourself up by the bootstrap kind of.
Exactly. You know,
Real
it's
meritocracy.
a corporate,
I like it.
it's a corporate ladder that you climb. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
They're
super
just
cool.
stepping on toes all the way up. Yeah.
So when they say slaves, that is most likely what they mean. Those are the sort of foot soldiers, the legion of the damned. And that is also most likely what your wife is.
Perfect.
Your wife is a lemure.
Take that back. So we have a place and a possible way, but we would need to disguise ourselves.
Xavier signs and hand code more work, 2 or 3 days. Points to himself.
You see Salivar glance down at his arm.
We still have a long time before the...
Yeah, you do. Yeah. You
Before
definitely-
the actual countdown?
Correct. Yeah, you can take some time. Yeah, you can do things that are going to take time for sure.
He says maybe then 2 or 3 weeks.
I do not wish to wait that long. I think things will be set in motion. There is something. He looks down at his arm. Salai knows, but I have not spoken to the two of you. Malkazid is a problem, one we intend to remove. But as my power stemmed from him, I had to separate myself, and I have done so. Through the agency of Loth. He says that, looking down at his arm.
Zavir's head swivels up from some tomes he had started to look at.
There is no medicine for this. There is no magic that can cure Salivar.
This is her boon. He raises his arm.
It is also her curse. It is your doom, Salivar.
Zavir looks to Salai. Signs time? Question. Points to...
She cocks her head, and she's thinking about the signs that you just made. Not much. Only as long as the Spider Queen deems he should live. If he were to fail in his task, or were he simply to succeed, she will strip everything away from him and there will be nothing left. This is the pact that he made.
Zavir signs, corrects. Days. 2 or 3.
She,
Then-
again, tries to figure out what he
Salivar
said.
nods to this.
2-3 days. Talk. He points to you, Salivar. Symbols here. Safe. Points to you. Leave. Tell him. Tell Zavir. He signs spell protection. Basically, if over the next 3 days, if Salivar is going to leave here, he's going to cast non-detection on him.
Cool.
So while he's here, he's covered by the wards that are here,
Very cool.
so that Malkazid basically can't reacquire.
Smart.
No target lock.
Salivar sits there on the stone, looking out at the three of you. Then we have our clock. Like Narbindel.
Montage.
Zavir symbols. I was going to say, work. Montage.
Devin, do you give that ring to Jidden?
I do in private.
Okay.
Do you
Let's start there.
do you do it like on one knee?
Let's start
No.
there with
Is it sexy?
you being like, hey,
I beseech him.
hey, did you kill my mom? Yeah, that meeting.
I don't have to ask that because
you know.
Jidden is here.
Right. Jidden, where does Salai find you in private?
He's probably in his workshop. At one of the rooms in the back, and there are dozens of wooden and stone, like busts and heads, and they all have various wigs and bits of dried clay and pigment smeared on them. As you can see, it looks like he's building different sorts of masks and disguises for himself.
Salai wanders into the room and admires some of your work before speaking. She's quiet.
Do you need something, Moon Maiden?
Only your ear.
Make it quick.
She bid me give this to you as a token of her appreciation.
Trinkets. What is it?
I hold it up and I spin it around in my fingers.
So you can read that it says one ring to rule them all.
It's quite cool.
It's a ring. It's a thin silver band with a mask on it. Not like your mask. You know it because a lot of the members of Bergendarth that live in Waterdeep worship this god. This god is called Mask, and he's a god of rogues. You don't know what exactly this ring does until Salai tells you the name of it, and you've heard of this ring before. It is that significant. This ring is called Shifting Nightmares.
Okay.
I just sent it to you. I don't know if you want me to tell everyone or if you want to just know in secret.
I'll know in secret. Does
Cool.
Salai know?
No.
No.
This was a treasure of my family's. I don't know when they got it, but they've had it for as long as I've been alive.
As soon as you see it, you recognize it because it's probably your friend Jar Axel. It was probably on his like short list of things he wanted to own.
Word. Jaden reaches his hand out, takes it. Another ring of water walking.
That's just a lot. Smiles.
Deep cut. Deep cut.
It's been 99 years since you've given me a ring. Perhaps this one will be better, though. And Jaden puts it down on the counter that he's working on.
I don't trust the child, but I believe her when she says she wants a different future for Menzoberranzan.
Well, that is good, because I don't believe Menzoberranzan will be the same very soon. Do you think your sister knows? She'll be the ruler of a dead city soon.
She knows much. Things have changed since matron Shara lost 2 of her daughters. She imparted much into the young girl at an early age. But she is susceptible, just like all of them, to the fanaticism, to the wickedness that it takes to survive here. I believe that she wants a better future for Menzoberranzan. I do not think she can do it by herself.
For Menzoberranzan, what does that mean to you, Moon Maiden? What do you think it means to her?
Menzoberranzan is a shadow cast by the surface. The drow that live here were so long content to wallow in it. Some drow escaped that shadow, returned to the surface from which we all came. They have done great deeds, brought glory to drow, while generations of them killed each other, poisoned, torn apart with snake-headed whips. I have no loyalty to Menzoberranzan, but I do wish to see a better future for drow.
In all these years, Salai, on the surface, I would have thought you would have seen more. You think Menzo is just drow. There aren't many left now. There are many others that inhabit this city. And do you think once what happens, when we're done, there'll be less? What happens then? Do you think they'll be able to fight them all?
We cannot save them.
Who says I want to?
This plot, Menzoberranzan will be destroyed. The blood of Lolth's priestesses cover the street. Rebellion foments in the stench streets. Menzoberranzan will no longer belong to drow soon enough.
Let's cut over to Xavier. Where is he right now?
I'm going to give you a little montage,
Sure.
a few things.
Yeah.
We see Xavier over the next few days. We see him in our home base, gather around these tombs. We see him back in a chalk circle different minerals and crystal powders arrayed as he summons and divines with creatures of different planes. We see him kneeling in the snow on the surface, the moon and stars shining down, an open doorway behind him in the middle of nowhere. Through the doorway is the cavern they came out of. We see a man that looks like the House Wizard of Vandry, wearing the Vandry crest, studying in the libraries of Sorcerer. A little blue shadow crosses one of his eyes to let the audience know it's severe. We see him back in the home base, this piece of kind of dark gray crystal kind of sheared on one side. See his hand waving over it, images forming below. We see him writing in the air, his fingers tracing, leaving this little silver pattern, words remaining, and then kind of being pulled down through that orb. We see Dan's children on the other side, and Candlekeep seeing the words form above them. Back and forth, messages cross, as Xavier does everything in his powers to learn what he can about their mission, the Hells, Malkazid, the Citadel of Bronze, Arbiter, and Alita.
Okay. Short list.
Yeah. A few heavy
So
hitters
did I
on
figure
there.
out?
So what do I figure out?
No.
Do you win?
I kind of gave Jake basically a list of like, here's everything I can kind of do to different ways of
Different
gathering
spells,
information.
different spells you can do and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yes. And here are the main takeaways. Arbiter is now known as Arbiter the Anguisher. He has become, within the past 100 years, the right hand of Malkazid. And essentially the foreman of this project, which is to build these gates.
Fucking unions.
That the Citadel of Bronze is sort of abuzz with this idea of these gates being built. Some say that it's even gained the attention of Asmodeus, who has not personally become involved. He's a greater god. We don't want to fuck with him, not until level 20.
Noted.
But the idea, and not a lot of detail is out there, although you know how this is going to happen. But the idea is that these gates are going to allow devils to enter Faerun at their will, regardless of banishments, regardless of whether or not they were slain on the prime material plane. And no one is really sure how they're, at the moment, they're just fucking giant bronze gates that do nothing. They're just archways that do nothing. But just this idea of like, well, if that works, it'll be really cool. Right? That's kind of the feeling. You've scryed, you've spoken with minor devils, you've done a lot of, and that's sort of the general consensus. This area where they are, you know that it's on sort of the outer edge of the Citadel, and you know that Arbiter has a legion of imps, particularly, that are sort of his foot soldiers. There's also rumor that some other god is involved, and that Malkazid is the servant of a greater god, and that greater god has given Malkazid and Arbiter gifts to sort of help them.
Hate that.
Because you've killed Arbiter before. You could theoretically do it again.
We're 1-0 against Arbiter. So.
But apparently he has a few items that make him more challenging. You weren't able to get a lot of information about them other than their names. He has some sort of weapon called Sorrow Drinker, and he wears an amulet called the Amulet of Suffering.
This is Arbiter or Malchus?
Arbiter.
This guy's like taking like notes from
He's leveled up.
Yeah, he has leveled up too.
Well, no, but
From Diablo.
from like the Imperials in Star Wars, how they name their ships.
Yeah.
They're literally devils, Dan.
The Subjugator.
They're not pretending to be good guys.
Fair.
Very, very dark metal band.
Sorrow Drinker and
Sorrow
Amulet
Drinker is a
of-
weapon and an Amulet of Suffering.
Suffering. Yeah, I was waiting for that one.
He had to upgrade it from the amulet of hate to the amulet of fear.
This is in purple now. It's
Yeah,
purple.
it's purple.
You also, I'm going to say that you went back to Mithril Hall. You talked to that dwarf, that priest of Ilmater, the burned dwarf. And he told you what this ring is that you've been given. He says that it's called Ilmater's Burden. Is a cursed magic ring, which means once you put it on, you can't take it off. And what it does mechanically is it allows you to use any meta magic ability as if you're a sorcerer. Instead of using sorcerer points, you lose hit points equal to 3 times the level of the spell being cast.
Ruh-roh.
Okie dokie.
First level spell, it's only 3
That's
hit
very
points.
Elmitter. So Elmitter.
First level spell, not a big deal.
Yeah, no problem.
I mean, put a couple meta magics on there. Whatever. Trying to think if there's anything else I want to give you at this point.
Anything?
While he was in Mithril Hall, could he have swung by and grabbed that iron golem?
What? No.
Isn't that where it was?
Shouldn't have said.
Oh, it was in Chednasad.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's buried. Any other thoughts, Josh? Anything else in particular?
I hadn't asked you about this before, but it struck me to try to figure out who Alita was when she was alive.
There's one other I'd put in your list. How do we identify a soul in a Lemure?
That's a great question.
And
that's,
or
that's
how-
for you to figure out. That's
Okay.
your job.
Okay.
I'll give you that later.
Okay.
You figure it out.
Okay.
And it's jarring.
Okay. So we can say a few days have passed.
Yes.
We're all back in the.
Yes. Well, we're going to jump around to it. Let me just see if anyone else has anything they want to do in that time period. Anyone?
Really bogart in the montage. Sorry.
Yeah. Montage. We're in research montage.
Should I ask that question now and try to pursue it? Or
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. You got a pretty smart daughter.
I do. And we have a means of messaging one another, don't we? Or do we not?
I thought you did.
I thought we did too.
I'm using sending
Okay.
to communicate with your kids. I told you I could help with that.
I write out
You could
a
also, I
letter.
mean, if you ask nicely, Salai can bring you there.
Oh yeah,
Oh, right. Plane shift.
the wind
No,
thing.
Windwalk. I actually, my little scene could
Oh wait,
take place at
I have
Kingdom
a
Keep
key
as well.
that fucking goes there.
The Kindle key.
You do.
Yeah.
You actually know that now.
Yeah.
You recently discovered that.
So if you want a face-to-face scene with them,
That'd be cool because it
Love
also might be
the high level, like, yeah, we can just go across the world. Whatever. We got a couple ways to do that.
It might be kind of cool because it might be me saying goodbye
yeah.
to the kids.
Yeah. So yeah, I think maybe you probably have heard a little bit about his research at this point. So you could ask him and Xavier could, you can.
He brings you over. There's a door in the back that he's been using for his travels and for testing. Pulls out that ring of keys. He flips through, and you see one. It's kind of like platinum gold. Like it's gold with these little like white highlights, very, very ornate. And he puts it in the lock and he turns it. It swings open and you just see like this long row of dusty bookshelves in front of you. And he just gestures.
Cool.
I step through, and as Silavar kind of walks into this hall now, he imagines demons on his heels. And he begins walking the halls looking for his daughter.
Footsteps echo. This part of the library is empty. You walk by this large picture window that looks out over the courtyard of Candlekeep, which is not a big place. Baldur's Gate 1, for those who have ever played it.
Been ages.
Very old game, but that's where you start. Not a very big place. Small village with this enormous library in the middle of it. And you look out over the courtyard and you see a bunch of tents. And it's kind of, you're a little confused at first, and then you recognize them. The actual tents you recognize. What is the name of your mercenary guild?
Nightfall Company.
Nightfall Company.
They're Nightfall Company tents.
I kind of narrow my eyes a little, looking among them.
You see your son walking past, talking to a few of the soldiers.
I can't imagine this is a good thing, but he kind of turns on his heel from the window and goes in search of his daughter, Morgana.
You search for a while, and you eventually find her in this small study room, a few candles lit, stacks of books all around her.
He knocks kind of softly on the door frame.
She turns. You see that sort of glint of her eyes and the dark vision, and she smiles.
It's good to see you, daughter.
How did you get here?
We have the keys.
She nods.
I'm here. He kind of stops. There's a lot of information I have to share with you, but most pressing is your mother.
You're going to get her?
We are. And we must understand the means and the ways that we can identify her. We know now that she will be in another form.
And she will not have free will. She won't be herself. You won't be able to reason with her.
So you have studied this.
She nods.
How can we break her free? How can we draw her to us?
She is a servant of the pit fiend, Arbister. He owns her soul. They are contracted in some way. You plan to kill him?
I do.
You plan to trap his soul?
I do.
She. If you recall, she was going for the gem.
Sure, right.
If you do that, then we can force him to free her.
Silavar's kind of nodding slowly, thinking about it. Will that mean you have to make a deal with him?
No. When he's been destroyed, when his soul is within the gem, we will be able to force him to do as we wish. But we must find Mother. She will be some lesser creature. She won't be herself. You won't be able to speak with her. But you'll have to keep her alive. Get her out of that place. Get her back to Menzoberranzan. From there, the ritual to force him to free her is not that complicated.
Interesting.
You know, this is kind of what, the reason she knows all this is because this is what she was trying to do. This is why she was in the city.
Yep.
Identifying her among the Legion will be difficult.
Is there any way?
She nods. She says, I have prepared a spell. I can make a scroll. I don't know if you can read it, but one of your companions will be able to. It'll help you identify her. It'll lead you to her, regardless of what form she's in.
One almost hopes she would recognize us.
It's a strange thing. I'm not sure what of her remains, or of any. They say that even the most powerful devils were once mortal. You must wonder if they know that.
So at their core, there is still a soul.
Whatever that is. She nods.
It's what we're fighting for.
But it makes me wonder what we are, Father.
What makes you question that? He gestures. All that I am doing is so that you may have choices. You know that?
She nods.
There are too many who are born into this world that are forced onto the path they walk. I want you and your brother, I want my brother, to be able to walk the path they choose.
She's just kind of listening and nodding.
This is to break the chains. Yes.
Break the chains.
He turns from her, like he was kind of focused on her, and he says, "What is your brother doing?"
Preparing the soldiers. Keeps him busy.
Fair. Night company is yours now. I tell you this because I am not likely to make it.
You can tell she's like trying to speak and not cry. She's just, I know.
But I am fighting so that your mother and I will be at peace. Alone from the gods, I hope.
Cut back to the cabin. The other three are just like leaning over the scrying crystal, just watching all this. A little tear in the corner of the eye. Azun's like, he sounds so different since he was bitten by Loth.
Yeah, right? His voice dropped. Salavar steps forward and hugs his daughter.
Okay.
And he says, "You can tell Malachi I'll be back, but I wanted you to know."
She nods.
He kisses her on the cheek and leaves.
You come back that Zavir isn't by the door. He just left the door open.
Salavar walks through the door. As he shuts it, he kind of looks down the hall towards his kids and then closes the door.
Here's a question for you, Jake. Actually, just as far as how the keys work, if I open a door with a key, can I take the key out and leave the gate open?
No, as soon as you take the key out, the gate is gone.
Okay. So I can leave that one key in the door?
And it's been a long time, but as I said, if you break the key, the door becomes permanent.
Yep.
But I imagine if you left a key in the door and then someone tried to take it out, they couldn't.
But they're all on right, correct. Yeah. Only he can. And it's one ring of keys. So you could only have one open at a time unless you break it. Jidden, anything else you wanted to do?
I don't think so.
Okay. Salai?
We see magical moonlight shining over a mural that is carved and painted in the floor of a great chapel. And we see Salai kneeling on the outside of that circle with a small, can't see it from here, it's a small metal object in front of her. And her eyes are closed. She's been at this for some hours at least, studying this map on the floor in the center of the Temple of Saloon.
Cool.
What I'm doing is finding the pathway that for us to shift through the plains in order for us to make it to hell.
Very cool.
There's an owl that is up in the rafters that watches over her.
Leaned up against one of the pews is that shield that you got from the House Vandry vault. It's this crescent moon shaped shield that actually softly glows with the light of the moon. Think almost like the Greek style where it's like it's actually shaped like a crescent moon.
Yep. So you can put a spear through the side.
Did you get my message about what it is?
I did.
Okay.
I have contemplated it.
Cool.
And she has this serenity about her as she kneels and meditates. She's very mindful as that moonlight dances across her face, the magical moonlight. You see that sort of purple glow that we haven't seen in a while since she's been in Menzoberranzan.
Nice. All right. One more thing, Dan.
Yeah.
Have you summoned Darkstar recently?
I haven't. No.
Aren't you doing your katas?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, maybe I have.
Yeah.
Let's say that during the exercises,
Let's do a quick cutscene
Yep.
of that then.
as
The first time you do it.
sure.
After
It's fucking spider poop
it doesn't
all
come.
over it.
It doesn't come to you. Darkstar does not come to you. A different weapon comes to you.
Silavar, as he summoned the weapon,
What does the Fang of Loth look like?
the Fang of Loth.
It's 14 inches made of silicone. I've seen the Fang of Law online.
No. Oh, no. Oh, boy.
Take us back to the dark web days of the Silk
Probably,
Road.
guys. It's
did you see it on
probably real.
OnlyFans?
It's probably real. That's the
Yeah,
thing. Is like
it
it's
is.
on the internet already.
I think the blade is. Do you remember the blade from? I think it might be Vampire Hunter D. It's like a rapier, but like just overall categorically larger. And
I saw a corp blade in
there you go.
3.5.
There you go. That's what it is.
3.5 Corp blade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Classic.
Great weapon that lets you use your decks.
Yep.
pretty good.
Yep. That's what it looks like.
Cool.
And it.
There's going to be 5 people who know what that is.
Yeah, well, no, there'll be more.
4 of them are at this table.
You can look it up. Elven
An
court blade.
elegant looking greatsword.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's black, and the
Okay.
blade itself absorbs light. And then, sort of around the filigree area is kind of these cobwebs that that reach down to the hilt, and the sword is kind of a platinum silver.
Nice. Do you want me to tell you what the Fang of Loth does, or do you
Yeah,
want? I
go
mean,
for
I
it.
sent it to you.
Oh yeah, yep.
You want to say it?
Fang of Loth, +3 weapon, plus 1d6 poison damage from the Fang of Loth that cannot be reduced. On a crit, regain a lost spell slot. If the target is a caster, they lose their highest level spell slot. If the target has a recharge ability, it is considered used. Wow. That is someone on Loth's bad side.
You think you're going to be able to keep that once?
Game might be over.
Yeah, who knows? I'll have to look at the.
you're not bringing that one to New Game
and-
Plus.
Fine print.
Don't say I never give you guys magic items. I just give
Yeah.
you all magic items.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jake.
Yeah.
Best, best DM.
Well, technically, you only gave me the
gave you
ability of magic item that I already
Yeah,
had.
it's not my fault that you keep fucking making your character incapable of doing anything, so that I have to give you a magic item that makes you capable of playing the game.
Jake, I can't use my magic item while I'm in my wild shape.
Yeah, I know you can't.
Perfect.
Are we back in the dojo?
Yeah, Josh, why don't you rally the troops for that?
All right. Let's say we all get our ways back there. We've been kind of doing our own things, preparing to be ready for this. A few days have passed. Azun has been around the last day or so, and
I'll give him a high five.
Xavier walks back in. He'd been further deeper in his private quarters. We all kind of have our own cubbies. He walks out, and Azun seems a little bit extra animated. And Xavier walks along and runs off his shoulder, leaps off his elbow, and runs up to Silavar and says, not looking so good today.
I am good all days.
The wizard says you were sick, maybe dying.
We are all dying, Azun.
Well, Azun's eyes swivel back to Xavier, and he says, the wizard's in quite a mood. Quite agitated, too.
Is that a fact?
Yes. He's been telling me about where your wife is.
And what are your thoughts?
Do you know anything about the appetites of pit fiends? Insatiable.
Azun, do you enjoy your time on this plane?
I do. I quite do. As short as it's been being made recently by Xavier. He's so lonely, I try to keep him company.
Then consider your words around me, imp. He walks by.
The wizard says you should consider exactly what a pit fiend looks like mating with a slave.
I hit him with banishing smite. I don't.
No.
Do it.
Okay, I will.
What's that do?
Draw the banishing smite means that if I do over his hit points, he's banished back to the plane.
He's banished back. He's banished then.
Azun disappears in like a cloud of like this
You hit him into a cloud of smoke.
black smoke. Xavier looks at you and kind of tilts his head. You see that blue eye kind of tinkle, and he walks to the null magic zone. You see him take that ring off and set it down. He walks out and he beckons all three of you over to that little ritual area he had, and he kind of gestures in front of him inside this circle, and he kneels down across his legs and waits for the three of you.
Silavar, the blade in his hand disappears back into the abyss, and he walks over, slowly slowing down his breathing as he approaches and sits.
Jidden enters and sits.
Salai kneels.
Some minutes pass. Xavier, his hands are moving in these incredibly complicated positionings. He's reaching in, drawing powders and liquids, splattering them around. About 10 minutes pass, and he reaches forward. There's these two eggshells in front of him, two half eggshells. One is small, kind of ivory. The other is large and kind of like a emeraldy green, some sort of large reptilian creature. And at the culmination of this, he takes the two eggshells in each hand, and he smashes his hands together. You hear the eggshells shatter, and he opens his hand, and where breath would come out, there's nothing but this kind of that unsettling gurgling sound, and yet the eggshell kind of just powder just drifts around, and it kind of covers all four of you. And then you see Xavier's eyes open again. The blue orb is just strong and lit. And in all of your minds, you hear Xavier's voice. Well, I think we should talk.
Let's stop there.
Okay.
Wow. We'll call that a wrap.
Coming in hot.
Thank you for listening to A Tangled Web. Please, if you have time, tell a friend, write us a review, or, just go out and shout it on the rooftops. Check out all of our different social media platforms. You can go to our website and find links at the bottom. There's probably also links on whatever you're listening to right now. That's nastygramrpg.com, and definitely check out the socials, because I tend to put little things on there to help with NPCs and visual aids and whatnot. Our intro music was by A Wilhelm Scream. Theme song is Oath by Adrian von Ziegler. All scores by Adrian von Ziegler and Antti Marttikainen. Thanks for listening.
That's nasty.
Silavar is standing.
That was good.
Oh, you're waiting for yeah. Got it. Perfect. Lovely.
Getting you up.
Yeah.
Some jelly beans.
Not one of your superpowers, Jake.
I know how to spell phantasmal.